Jimmy, what did you think, my friend?
I mean, I'm captivated. Listen, I've been cautiously optimistic, and in the last 2 weeks, I've let myself get very, very excited for this show. And I felt very confident going in here. What we heard from George and Ryan Condell or Condell, whatever, everything leading up to this has been, encouraging.
Right.
It went better than I ever could have imagined. And it's different in a way that I love. And we're not jumping across continents. We're not jumping apart, different parts of Westeros or anything. It's a different show, guys. This is a different show, but still maintains that quality. I mean, just little things, right? Allison's fingernails bleeding, her biting her finger. I mean, just things that are so small of detail, but then also has all of the grandiose, so epic shots that no one else can do. No one does it like this. My wife is not like she's never even finished the original show. Like, she likes it, but she just kind of goes in and out of it, and she's still watching through it. Like, we got done, and she was like, "That was a movie." She was like, "That felt like when I saw Dune." She's like, "It was an event." I was like, "It was an event." In the pacing of the episode, I was very nervous because I heard some people say that it moved along a little quickly. I don't think so at all. I thought that the overall theme that you could subtly pick up on, that they trusted you to pick up on, is that Viserys is a weak king. And then the climax of the episode is when Daemon says, "You are weak." I mean, tying those things together, and then you have, the birth scene might be one of the most disturbing things I've seen on television. Honestly, I was getting a little I was squirming in my seat a little bit. I lost it. And at the end of that episode, a song of ice and fire.
Guys, it's insane. It's a song of ice and fire. Let me put so Matt summed it up in 3 words. My one word is matters. Like, House of the Dragon matters so much. It's a song of ice and fire now. Like this, it mattered before, but it matters even more now. This is a change that's so good. It's so good for the whole thing. Just to pass that along, it's like, wow, that's what he's passing down to his heir. I don't know. I was absolutely blown away by this episode. I loved it. And like you said, Jimmy, the build up this whole way. He's weak. There's all this talk about him being an heir. And then at the end, he's sitting there, he's got Blackfire. And he's staring him down. He's commanding him to go. And then just, I don't know, the weight and the tension that you could feel in this was just through the roof.
Yeah, him holding Blackfire, and then you have the wielder of Dark Sister staring him down. Dude, Matt Smith, stand out of the episode.
Yeah.
Stand out. Yeah. Crazy.
Guys, I know sometimes I can be a little long-winded, so just bear with me, because there's so much I have to say about this. First and foremost, the single best compliment I can give this single episode, not even what the show's going to be or anything. This felt like an episode of season 3 or season 4 of Game of Thrones. Just viewing it as a standalone piece of content. The way. And you have the advantage of doing that because, we know what the Iron Throne is. We know all of those things. So I think it's hard to even try to compare this to the Game of Thrones pilot because it has to introduce us to the entire world. But, obviously this benefits from that. This felt like a peak episode of Game of Thrones. This felt like we were right back there, right watching like season 3 or season 4, like the little just political banter back and forth and the eyes between Daemon and Otto Hightower as they're sitting, on the council and, talking about your wife and your wife, all of the little Game of Thrones being played was back. And the total standout for me, the man who deserves all the credit, freaking Ramin Djawadi, the music was so amazing.
Bro, the final scene.
Yeah, that song they released a few days ago, and it was called The Prince That Was Promised. And I was like, why is there a song called The Prince That Was Promised? And then they're tying it into the Song of Ice and Fire. And we talked about this. This was a potential leak. Spoiler, George has kind of mentioned stuff in the past. But when Rhaenyra flies up for the first time and you can see her, right? That theme is the exact same theme. Go back to season 8, and it's used with Dany a lot. But go watch season 8. I think it's episode 1 where Jon and Dany are flying and you get a shot of them on both the dragons coming in, and it's the exact like point for point the same. It was one of those things we talked about with like trying to even compare this to say Star Wars, where we were saying like, you know, do you go an entirely different route for the music? Do you do something kind of similar? And I think he found the perfect ground of, again, like Star Wars, I think is a great example where Star Wars, the music is all the same. And so everything feels the same, and everything you feel like you're right back in, and everything, you know, like there's some motifs and that are different in like say the prequels, but it still has that same type of a feel as like the droid army, for example, sort of feels like the Imperial March. It's not, but it has that same type of feel, and it's John Williams who did the music. So here, you know, he took a lot of the themes that he created, and he just expands on them. So it feels like we're back.
It's lineage.
And it feels new. Yeah. And it feels like it's older. It was just, I mean, perfect. Like the score for this episode could not have been better. I mean, could not have been better.
Not only that, but the look and the feel of the episode, I felt like this was truly Westeros 170 years ago. Like Game of Thrones feels ancient and old, right? But like this felt older. Mm-hmm. King's Landing looked different, guys. Mm-hmm. I mean, it wasn't as like done up. It was a little bit more rudimentary. I just felt like I was home.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to say that it also, you know, you go back in time and it feels like there's not as much I don't know, like embellishment, but at the same time it's closer to its creation at the same time, you know what I mean? Like simpler and sleek, but you know, because again, we're going back closer to when it was. I mean, obviously improvements have been made, but it just felt really good. Like Matt said, you're stepping right back into Game of Thrones, not missing a beat in terms of, that's what they said in the promo, is that they were taking the best from Game of Thrones, which includes the music, the costuming, the sets, all that stuff. And it's sick.
The embroidery on all of the costumes is
the helm
so good.
Yeah.
I mean, not that Game of Thrones obviously had great costuming and everything. You know, it got a lot better in like season 3, you know, compared to season 1. But again, it was launching an entire new show. But you know, and by the end, all the costuming in Game of Thrones looked great. But this just feels bigger and better. And you know, it's been 5 years. And if you just even think about some of the technology that like has in movies and everything that has just come about, like the volume in Star Wars, the way they filmed The Mandalorian, they said, I've read a lot of stuff that they use, you know, similar type, that they use that same, a lot of that same technology and all that stuff. It's like, you can just see it. I mean, it's just, it's like Game of Thrones looked great, but this just looks so much.
Yeah.
Like it just looks so good.
So the reason I didn't do a live watch along with you guys, because I just bought a new TV. So it's a 65-inch OLED LG G2. This thing is like,
no, they're so good.
Yeah. It's literally
so
like good. In my wall. And
I almost bait and I was at Costco yesterday and they had it like right when you walk in and I was like,
bro, this looked amazing in HDR 4K. I mean, it looked ridiculously good. And dude, what you were saying about the score, like when she's putting on her hair, I mean, everything was building. That's the thing. It didn't feel forced, and it didn't feel like some weird cousin. Like it literally does feel in universe. Like it fits. That is what television can do. Like that's prime TV. Like that is actually like premium television right there.
Yeah, comment here from, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name correctly.
Jay. That's my boy Jay.
Oh, Jay. Yeah, he says I have the same TV. Looked fucking epic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then funny. You know, it was interesting too when I was watching, say, the scene where Daemon is talking to Viserys in the throne room, right? And you just think about all the times we've seen that throne room, right, in Game of Thrones, and it's always usually packed and everything. But here there's like boxes lying around, and yeah, it's just so interesting seeing a lot of the same places that we've seen before, but in this new thing. I mean, the episode was a 10 out of 10 for me. I mean, this would have been one of the best episodes of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I think we still need, like, we'll have bigger payoffs, and like we have so much craziness to come, but like setting out to do what it's doing. This is better than the first episode of Game of Thrones by a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what was the painting in the background? I see people keep saying this. I did not. I'm going to watch it again.
I did not notice
before I make my review video later this week. But like, I mean, my mind was just racing. the
I mean,
whole
guys,
time.
it's you can't even. I'm trying to go back and do a click through, and thank God I didn't stop the stream when I was going through because it is crashing. I mean, it's crashing on me right now as I try to go back and do a little click through to find that picture. Want to mention real quickly too, just the tension, the way that they kind of did those moments. The small council is debating what to do with Daemon, and we're locked in on that conversation, and then they gently cut to Daemon listening, and I was like, it stops you for a second. Oh, they're hearing this. You're like, whoa. And you know something, right? That the other characters at the table don't quite know. And it just that kind of stuff is brilliant. That's good. That's good storytelling. And they did it multiple times. So
yeah. This episode too also felt like, just if you think about just everything that was in it, it almost felt like, and it's great as a pilot for being this, it almost felt like a showcase of like all of the best stuff that existed in Game of Thrones. Right? Like we got a little bit of the political banter back and forth. We got, there was some of the, stuff that's really hard to watch and that really grips you. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, this is like crazy.
Even the
but
battle.
it's done. Even the battle, like the fighting scenes were amazing. And then it ends with like the big prophecy song of Ice and Fire. It felt like, hey, this is a showcase of what this show is going to be and what Game of Thrones is had you never seen the original.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, guys, can I just say, so like as you go, people who were kind of doubting, they were wondering what's this going to be about or whatever. They're coming in now saying like, all right, I'm impressed. I feel like from the get go, you're like, wow, this is intense. There's battles, there's tourneys, there's whatever. You got to the end of this, and it matters so like that secret being passed down. I mean, again, the episode without it is phenomenal. It's like if that wasn't done, it would be just again a 10 out of 10. This surpasses a 10 out of 10 when you call a Song of Ice and Fire and you go to that next level. We're on a different level here, like a level we didn't expect, honestly. And it's just
it's very obvious, even in episode 1 of that George Martin is way more involved in this than he was in Game of Thrones.
Right. And let's
like way more.
Because the attention here, okay, you could have just had Daemon say when asked, did you say it? And does he answer, fellas? Did we actually see him? Did we actually hear him say it? No, but there were 3 witnesses, right, who came forward. Did we ever hear him confirm it? No, I mean, not necessarily, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of like that. We're playing with the ambiguous nature of Fire and Blood in a way, that way, and like maybe it won't even matter if he ever said. We're never gonna get the answer, right?
No, never.
But like that is just a kind of like a subtle nod to what this whole story is predicated on, which is conflicting reports. It's little things like that are nods to the source material that I really get behind. And like even the like whenever they're kind of setting up the episode from the cold open, like that worked for me so much. And like I feel like so many other shows have done this, like this kind of cold open with the narration over. Lord of the Rings movies come to mind, right? And it just fit so well.
No, the cold open was actually really good. That was a good way to kind of set the scene for everything, to add in some history. King Jaehaerys, tell us what's been going on. The fact that they brought up Maegor the Cruel and stuff like that, like they're alluding to not too far in, back
from that point.
They said Daemon was good. It was Maegor. Maybe worse.
Whoa.
Maybe worse. It's like, listen, guys, back off Matt Smith. We got to see Matt Smith clap cheeks. Like, let's guys.
Wow.
I mean, come on. He clapped cheeks.
I will say the Emmys, or as they were known in the 2010s, the Game of Thrones Invitational, is basically, it's kind of like Alabama in the national championship. It's like pretty much the Alabama Invitational they get in every year. It's pretty much gonna be that again. It was kind of like, I hope you guys enjoyed that little 5-year pause. But the now House of Dragons Invitational has begun at the Emmys, because this show is gonna just clean house.
Yeah, HBO's got a couple heavy hitters there, man. I mean, this is why I trust HBO. This is why I love HBO. They just do it different. And we've been seeing a lot of people point to other shows like, can this be the next thing? I'm gonna be honest. Like 1 and 2, it reminds me when Michael Jordan played in the NBA. It's like, dude, Shaq was really good and he was the second best player, and then Michael Jordan was like here.
Right.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And I'm not trying to hate on other shows. I'm just saying there's levels to this shit.
This is the royal airness. This is the that commands the skies here, right? Just like old Jordan did back in the day. So I'm with you, man. Like, and Matt's right. Like, this is going to come back and win tons of awards. Whether it's for, visuals, the costuming, the acting, all sorts. The
score
music,
is like
everything.
it's so good.
It's just phenomenal.
Okay, let's dive into a little bit of so we've talked, okay, now that we've talked just a little bit about like just impressions, like, okay, it's the show. Let's dive into some of the nitty-gritty as like A Song of Ice and Fire lore and theorists here, because there was a lot of stuff we got to see, because Fire and Blood and A World of Ice and Fire and just sort of like what's talked about in the histories of this era, the Dance of the Dragons, is really open for interpretation. It's kind of just a broad outline. Like say Emma Aaron's death. All that's really said is that she died during childbirth and that her son died the next day. But now, on one hand, you could say they're changing it, but with George Martin so involved, I'm thinking this is actually a little more of like his plan for the way of what really happened. So, what do we think about Viserys now that he was a little more involved with it, man?
Another Targaryen just being deceived by dragon dreams, right? Like,
yeah,
he says, I've seen the dream as clear as day. It was realer than life. And it's like, well, you were right, kind of. And isn't that just kind of prophecy in general in the Song of Ice and Fire world? Is like, yeah, you were almost there. Like, you almost got it, but it had a whole different meaning. And dragon dreams, even in Dunk and Egg, we see them, how they are misinterpreted, and they can kind of even be allegory for power and struggle. So I just feel like Viserys, and maybe they could have driven it home a little bit more, but they kept it pretty subtle. They kept it pretty subtle with Viserys in his dreams. They mentioned, I think, twice, and then you see him make that decision. That was awful. Patty Constantine broke my heart. Like, God damn.
Yeah.
The king better take care of that mercy.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Oh my. Yeah, that was again attention to detail in terms
he's getting cut up by the throne. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
hey, Rhaenyra,
the throne like that looks sweet too.
Yes, and I was wondering how it'd look on camera, like in a shot. The back is even bigger. Like, that's the thing I didn't, because everyone pays attention to the steps and whatnot, but the back is actually bigger, and I'm like, man, that looks so
good. So
good.
clearly, when Robert Baratheon got in, he's like, "Get this out of here!"
Yeah, he's trying to get nicked up left and right. I'm sick of this. All the stuff.
We're not doing this anymore. Fix it.
They had to get the seat stretcher,
the seat stretcher. Oh boy.
Jay said this in the chat, and I agree. He said, I honestly love the change of Rhaenyra and Alicent friendship so far, loving the changes. And I agree. I think them being friends is way better. Way, way, way better.
Yeah, because it tears you apart. I mean, this is like, there's way more emotion to this. I mean, as Matt was even saying with Emma Aaron, all these changes or whatever, and as Jimmy pointed out and Jay there, it's like there's a emotion behind it, a lot more, instead of this one line in the page that she died or that they knew each other when they were young or something. It's, we're now seeing all this stuff, and we're seeing how close they were, and that's going to tear them apart. They went through this emotional sort of like event together, and here she is getting passed on this great secret.
And Alicent getting passed to Viserys' bedchamber after hours.
Yeah.
Wow. And that was kind of interesting. And I liked, and as I said,
for the realm, by the way,
as I said this a little bit during when we were watching, Jimmy, so you didn't hear us say it, but it almost feels like, and I'm glad they're kind of going this way, is at least in episode 1, it felt a little bit more like Otto wasn't necessarily trying to, he wasn't really playing the game like for him to get more power. He was more so just kind of playing to get Daemon out of power. It was more like he was like, playing, just being like, I don't like Daemon. Like, I need to get him out. So it wasn't like, oh, I want to marry this my daughter off so that I'm now more in charge. It feels like he's just like, he's like, I just hate Daemon. I feel like there's layers to it, right? Because Daemon's the immediate threat to his influence. So now that Daemon's sent away, we are now going to see Otto Hightower start to scheme I think we're going to see his truer intentions now. Right. And I mean, sending Alicent, she's biting her nails, nervous. Man, that was rough. Played that up. Yeah. Yeah. And her nails, did you see at the tourney when it cut and her nails were bleeding? Yeah. What a detail.
Yeah. So you bring up a really good point about Daemon. So at the end, right, Daemon actually goes up and tells him some truth. But at the same point in time, what we saw was also this. I mean, they're both kind of right in that, like, Daemon's crazy, but at the same time, Daemon's like, you have enemies all around you. They think you're weak, and I'm really trying to protect you from yourself. I mean, but it's just there's bits of truth in everything that everybody's saying around the table, which is Game of Thrones. You know, there's a little bit. It's like who do I believe? Who do I trust? I mean, they're very persuasive. When all the different members at the council are very persuasive, you're like, this is tough. It's a tough call.
Yeah.
So
yes,
somebody left a very good comment during the live stream and said that they felt like, and at least maybe they were just talking about what we see in the show, that Daemon is kind of like half Ramsay, half Jaime Lannister. And I was like, I think for people who only watch Game of Thrones, I think that is probably a pretty good sort of comparison to kind of just for like if you watch Game of Thrones, you don't know anything about the books, and you're like, I think that is a good comparison.
Yeah. And I like that people are pointing out that Maesters come from Old Town, which is where Otto comes from, right? And then Maester Mellos is there, and it's like, also, what about the bonnets? Did you guys like the Maester bonnets?
Yeah.
I loved it.
Dude, you know who, I will say this, you know who else I thought looked freaking awesome? Corlys Valerian.
Oh, he did.
Dude, he's gonna. I think House Valerian is gonna be so sick. I think they're gonna be awesome.
I think the casting of this show is so good, and I mean, obviously, we know the original show also did a great job, but like to hit it out of the park again with the casting, it's awesome.